Hey, how are you? I just wanted to get in and make this video that I've been saying I was going to make for a while. It's the one that we're going to be talking about the differences between the original Slaughterville and the director's cut. Now, people were asking me about the director's cut if they could just get an upgrade pack. That's really not going to be possible, only because of how much we've actually changed. By we, I mean yours truly and those that helped me do the playtesting. The very few things that we didn't change, one is the entrance, because that's not really going to change. The only thing, in fact, we changed from the original was that we put action on in Slaughterville 2. We changed the layout, the design, and yeah, so that's going to stay the same. The same thing with the farm. That hasn't changed as far as the mat goes. Now, the cards inside have changed. See, we'll start with the locations. But the locations have each been given their own story. And that involved changing a lot of what the locations did, what they were. We made them more interactive. We made them, of course, you know, that's the whole tagline, right? More interactive, deadlier, faster, that whole thing. Take the farm, for instance. Now, you still have Scrapple, you still have Grandpa, you still have Sickle, you'll have Old Blue, the Spectral Hayride. Oh, off-screen teleport, and Safe for Now. Those are the other two cards we didn't change, because again, they were fine the way they were. A lot of the cards were edited to be, how to say, more thematic. Like throughout the entire farm now, there's a story of the people that live there and how they are being possessed by a dark power with tendrils. They have rituals in the cornfields. They're capturing people, and that's just in here. That's just in the location. Like the prison. The prison now, again, it has more of a theme of corrupt guards, and the person behind all the evil, i.e. the villain, is trying to get them to keep you in the prison. And so, and even the checks are different for this one, because now you're going to be combining stats in order to try to perform these, perform the checks in the prison. Like, just give one here at random. Chi-Chi. This one has you doing your nerve and your health. Combine those, make a check, count the number of successes, and then see what you get. And the same thing with, no, off-screen teleport is still there. Like the shotgun. The shotgun is still going to be in the cell. It's going to be your job to try to get it out. But now, instead of just making one or the other, you combine your perception and your agility to see if you can throw the bed sheet to get the shotgun and drag it towards you. If you fail, though, it goes off and it shoots you. But that's your prison. Your swamp is the same thing. The swamp I like because you can actually bury bodies in the swamp now. Whenever you defeat an enemy in any location, you can discard 3 clues. I know 3 sounds like a lot, but you get more now. You can discard 3 clues and remove that guy from the game. So if there's an incredibly hard enemy that you've beaten in one of these locations, and you happen to have enough clues to bury his body in the swamp, you can do that. That's in there now. The residential neighborhood. Actually, again, had it set up off camera, off screen, whatever you want to say. This one is all about doppelgangers taking over the residential neighborhood, and they are trying to work their way into, and in some cases they have worked their way into society, and they're working with the villain. Let's see. The antique store is all about needful things, if you've seen that film, where in order to get something, you got to give something. And there is, believe it or not, in this deck, there is the shopkeeper, the overall owner of the antique store. And if you happen to kill him, you can actually remove the antique store from the game. Of course, don't throw it in the garbage. You know, I just mean from the game as you're playing. And yeah, that's an option for you if you want to do it. Alright, so those are our locations. The characters you're familiar with. Again, these are just my print and play copies. Nothing fancy. This one I actually gave it back to. But each of these have been updated, of course, for the look for the Slaughterville 2. But their abilities have also been altered. And the Snoop, if you'll notice on his, if you can see it here, if not, again, it'll be up here somewhere. He actually has 2 abilities. One costs 1 clue, one costs 2. So you have more choices on a lot of these characters. And yeah, the photographer is the same way. The Jock, again, is another one with 2 abilities. So yeah, a lot of these have been changed, edited. Again, all of these changes are to the items, or I should say just locations, villains, characters from the original game. Slaughterville 2 is its own game. It's sitting there. That's not in here at all. There's no changes to that. Only changes to the original game, including all of its expansions and promos. In fact, we are going to have plenty of new promos, new characters, a lot. If we, when we go live on July 2nd, which is not that far away, which is cool. My plan is, of course, not only to do this video, but hopefully live streams. If you want live streams, let me know. We'll do it that way. We'll figure it out, and we'll play through each one of the villains that we have. Now, this is only 3, 4, 5, 6 out of the 10 villains that we have. That was you, Mr. Professor. You go over there. And again, each of them have been updated to the new layout, making the text bigger, easier to read, of course. But they've been given upgrades, new abilities, new soul is the best way I can think to really say this. It makes them feel more like what they are. In fact, the beast within now uses what's called hunted marks, because the beast is hunting you. Each one of its cards, now which one were you? Nope, that's the Dream Demon, which I'll get to. But each one of its cards will be putting hunted marks on the players. Yeah, add 1d3 hunted marks. And it does things based on whoever has the most hunted marks, who's being hunted at that time. And you don't want them. There is a way to get rid of them. The Beast Within has gotten a major upgrade as far as feeling more in your face, more antagonistic, I guess is a good way to say it. So yeah, so that's him. The Body Snatchers as well. The Body Snatchers you wouldn't even recognize from the original. They've changed that much. It's because, again, one of the nice things we did with the Slaughterville 2 things, we got rid of that permadeath crap. It was horrible, right? Never should have had it in the first place. But what happens now is that whenever a character dies, they become a pod person. They become a pod character. And they can eventually become a turned pod character. So in other words, when the character dies, they're stuck in the cocoon, and they're given a certain number of timer tokens, and each round, some of those come off, depending on the cards here, because these cards can remove those timers, but they also go away naturally, because you're naturally turning into this pod character. And after you turn into that pod character, you get attached to, you become part of the Body Snatchers. Now the player gets a new character, but that character becomes a pod character. And their abilities, their stats add up into this. So these cards in here say to use the Body Snatcher's perception. Well, there's no stats on here. That's because it's based on... Sorry, Professor. So let's say the Professor was a turned pod character. So we'd look at his perception. Now the Body Snatcher's perception is 4. and that's what you'd have to check against. So that's completely different than what it used to be. Everything from the first game will be compatible with this one, and should fit in the giant box that we're going to have. Cannibal Rednecks. Yeah, I am so sorry for what I did with the Cannibal Rednecks. They are much, much more evil now. Yeah, they're going to be mean. You can make a check against the Cannibal Rednecks combat based on one of the different stats on your character, and depending on which stat you choose, that has a different effect. So if you're better at agility than you are at combat, you can do an agility check against their combat and you can perform that instead. So yeah, we did that. The old invite them to the picnic thing, which again is a little bit different. But their overall goal is still to get meat from all over town, but how they go about it now is completely different. In fact, one of the big additions to this, and I'm just going to pull a couple of them. With the Cannibal Rednecks, now the family has shown up. In fact, family members are an integral part of the Cannibal Rednecks now. They're not just an abstract concept anymore. They are the family. Like Cousin Tommy, Cousin Frankie. And what happens is they will all get attached to the Cannibal Rednecks as the family comes together for the picnic. The family gets larger, and they get more abilities. That's the major difference with the old Cannibal Rednecks. Still looking for meat, but you have different ways of interacting with them, and we've introduced the family members again. The Dream Demon. Anybody here like the Dream Demon? I did. I thought it was pretty cool. He was one of the hardest ones. There was something missing though. I could never quite put my finger on it. And if you remember the first Nightmare on Elm Street, what did she do? When she brought him into the real world, what did she do? Well, she had all these traps laid around the house. So that's what you're doing now. You're going to be detaching items, placing them on locations. Then when you bring him into the real world, that's the only way you're damaging him, is that way. Because when he's in the dream world, you can't hurt him. So the only way to do that is to lay traps, go into the dream world, and come out. In fact, the Dream Demon now has fatigue tokens, and you're able to put yourself to sleep, or he does it to you automatically by haunting your dreams and not letting you fall asleep normally, so you just get more and more and more tired, and eventually you must go into the dream world. Now when you're in the dream world, your main thing is to, well, one, you still encounter the location's discard pile instead of the deck, but you can also detach clues to remove fatigue tokens to try to wake up. And when you wake up, that's when you bring him into the real world. Now each of his cards now, except for the songs, he still wants to get his songs, but each of the cards have Dreamscape and Real World. So whether you are in, or anybody around the table, are in the Dreamscape, then this would take effect. But if they're in the real world, then this will take effect. The real world is usually the one that's trying to keep you, try to make you fall asleep, or he's sending earthly minions after you. The Dreamscape one is more about keeping you there, dealing you damage. Now there are some cards that will attach to him, like his Tools of the Trade and his Special Place. They will attach to him and give him bonuses you don't want him to have. This one I did was the Carnival. Now has you're still going to be going through, rolling the Wheel of Destiny. You still want to get the 5 powers behind the Carnival. The player starting area for the Carnival doesn't exist. You don't use it. There's Cannibal. The Carnival never suffers damage, because you're not trying to beat up a carnival. You're trying to find the powers that be behind it, and you're trying to beat them. And here's the thing. You never die. in this one. Well, technically, you're already dead. But whenever damage is done to you, it's actually done to whatever location you're on. So if you take 15 damage for something, 15 cards get removed from the game, from your location. And when that location is gone, the carnival has captured your pawn, which the pawn is a soul. And the carnival wants to capture a bunch of souls to power it, to keep it running. And that's how it does it. So yes. And each one of these is going to be, think like the prison with where it's combining some stats, but it's souped up. It's made more difficult, meaner. So again, like a knife throwing act. I don't know if you remember the knife throwing act from the original Carnival, but here you're combining your combat and your nerve, because your friend is tied to the spinning thing on the knife throwing act, and you are the one standing there with the knives. So it's going to take all of your combat and your nerve to throw that knife successfully. And you will check how many successes you've made to see if you beat it. Now, when you get to the powers of the Carnival, you'll know them by, it says Carnival Power. I made it pretty cryptic that way. You will make a different stat check. But here's the thing, everybody around the table is making the same one. And also, yeah, that's the other thing with the Carnival, the cards apply to everybody. Everything in here applies to everybody. So if you're making this check, so is everybody at the table. But with the powers, what you'll do is each of you will make a check, you'll combine the successes from everybody, and you'll see if that was enough based on player count to beat the Carnival power. And if it is, congratulations, you're one step closer to beating the Carnival. If it's not, well, then bad things will happen. Okay, so that's the Carnival. I would say the Carnival's at 95% done. Pretty confident in it. I like it. People that have tested it with me liked it. This one I haven't tested yet. In fact, I just finished cutting the cards for it. Cutting the cards for it yesterday. And this is the new Horseman. Not replacing, because you can still use the old Headless Horseman with everything we have here. Nothing's going to change with him. But the new Horseman, he still does his ride through the town. But what's different about him now, you'll see there's a few more cards than before. He still has, well, let's get to the end one. He still has his deck and so on. But here's the thing. Here's the thing. With the Horseman now, you have a list of 9 suspects. So these suspects are going to be laid out at the tip top of your game board, where your location. As long as you have all 9 laid out, that's all that matters. And whichever ones survive until the final combat will provide a bonus during that final combat. But here's the thing. What you're trying to do is figure out who's the controller of the Headless Horseman. Because one of those 9 is evil. One of those 9 is bumping off the others. So this is the suspect deck. This is the crime deck. There's a crime for each suspect. So what you're going to do in the beginning, you're going to shuffle, and again, take one at random, stick that puppy under the Horseman. That person's the controller. That suspect, whoever it is the controller. And again, what's going to happen is the Headless Horseman is going to overturn a crime. When he overturns that crime, you're going to take that crime and replace a suspect. So for instance, this one's Jason in the crimes. So Jason was killed. So since he was killed, he's no longer a part of the pantheon, your choices, your helpers for the final combat. Now, you also have, speaking of crimes, you have to solve them. You have to solve these crimes by matching or attaching cards or clues to these crimes, because if you don't solve the crime, then the terror in the town is just going to keep growing and growing and growing, and that's what the controller wants. The controller wants to increase fear. They want to increase the horror in the town so that they have an easier time of taking over. So the more crimes that are left unsolved, the more likely it is that the terror is going to rise, and if it gets to a certain level, well, you lose. Now here's the thing. The horseman cannot suffer damage. Can't. And in fact, where do you hear a crime? In fact, you don't even overturn a villain card on the villain turn until the final combat. And you're going to have a day and a night cycle. During the day you get to investigate, which is investigating the crimes, attaching cards to it. You can also accuse, but at night you're on patrol. On patrol you're going to be rolling the 2d6, spending clues to raise the numbers up or down in order to have them match, and that actually protects one of the locations from the horseman doesn't go there because you're on patrol. And at the final combat, at the beginning of final combat, that's when he has a single combat round against all characters, and then you finally are able to overturn and encounter the horseman's cards. Because the controller's been found. You want to get here as quickly as you can, because the more help you have from the other suspects, the better off you're going to be. Like, he's going to throw axes at you. He has a haunting laughter. If he finds his skull and attaches it, if he finds his horse, same thing with the gleaming blade, that's back. Fire and brimstone is an attack on just about everybody. Sword strike again. That's the last villain I have for you here. Serial killer. I know you're going to like the serial killer, what we have planned for him. The zombies. The zombies are getting a big overhaul, a double player mat. So yeah, wait till you see that one. And Jack the Ripper. Yep, I don't want to give too much on Jack away, but it's still going to be social deduction, except it's going to be improved from what it was. Not that it was bad before, don't get me wrong, I still like it. It's just, I want to make it better. So yeah, that's what we have. That's where we're going with this. If you have any suggestions or any comments on the other villains that we haven't done yet, let me know. We'll take everything into consideration, and I look forward to seeing you then. Again, if you want to do live streams with this where you actually watch play, and we'll try to figure out how to do all of that here in our space, but that would be cool. You know, I think that'd be pretty neat. So let me know. Alright, have fun.